was spent and that kind of work can go on, to me is more than evidence, aside from everything in your book, like so much evidence from years and years and years ago that time is elastic. It's not what we think it is. The present, the past, and the future are all in a space-time continuum. It's exciting. I don't know that most of us know what to do with that in our day-to-day, but I can tell you one thing for sure. In my long thinking about this, I would say most people that want to manifest things, one of the biggest blocks to manifestation is the notion of time. And people's imposing their notion of when people's stuff should manifest is a huge block to that realm. But I want to share something personal with you to validate something you said a few minutes ago. Just a few days ago, I was rereading the book Jumpstart Your Metabolism by Pam Grout, who I also interviewed. And I'm doing a lot of breathing work. And as I'm doing this breathing work and getting relaxed, something came in and the words came in, your sister's not well. And I hadn't talked to my sister in a couple of months. So I contacted her and found out. I said, are you okay? Is everything okay? She goes, I'm wondering why you're asking right now. And I said, I don't know. I just feel like I'm supposed to ask you. She goes, I'm on a heart monitor right now.
Wow.
That to me is the intuition and getting in a receptive place to receive input. That's also some type of, I don't know if it's telepathy, but it's something. Talk about telepathy. What is it exactly? I mean, we all know, even with animals, that animals are telepathic. We experience telepathy, but what is the it that we're referring to?
Well, I mean, technically what we're referring to is the fact that we're able to tap into some other conscious being's experience at the time. Okay, so usually when people talk about telepathy, I mean, they're talking about, at that time. Okay, they're that's one of those things where they're not, it's not, they're not talking about precognition. Okay, they're talking about at this moment, simultaneously, as I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden the thought runs through my head of, I better call my brother, I better call my sister, and then you pick up the phone and you call, and then you find out they've just been admitted to the ICU, and it's happened because you just had this feeling like, I need to check in with them. And so there's telepathy that has occurred. It's this connection where something that's going on somewhere else in space, same time but different location in space, but because you have a connection with that individual, that their emotional state and your emotional state somehow are, their emotional state is affecting your emotional state to create this feeling of, usually it's a feeling of uneasiness, because as I said, it's more likely to happen in a time of crisis or something bad going on. And so what happens is that you're spanning physical space with your connection. So precognition is spanning time. You're going to a different location in space-time, but it's time that's primarily different. The space could be the same. With telepathy, it's that the time is the same. What you're doing is you're actually connecting in a different dimension through space. And it's more common among people who are closely connected. It's genetically connected. And the parts of the brain that seem to be the most activated at those times are the ones that are involved in social bonding, that's very interesting in and of itself, because it's those that we have the social bond with that we have these experiences with the most. And Dean Radin talks about quantum entanglement, and I don't really think it's he talks about that, and that's this fact that physicists have been able to see that if two particles are created, subatomic particles are created at the same time, that even if they're separated by light years, if you change one, the other one will have to change in correspondence, so that they're always in the right sort of configuration vis-a-vis one another. Well, it's hard to take that concept and then translate that into, like happened between you and your sister. To me, it's not that we're quantumly entangled. What it is that the experiments in quantum entanglement just give you an insight into the fact that we live in a universe that is multidimensional, and things that appear to be separated in space-time in the dimensions that we are aware of are not separated at all in all of these other dimensions that we are told probably exist, because otherwise the mathematics within physics don't work out. That's why people, in superstring theory say that, we've got at least 10 dimensions, maybe 23 dimensions, but we've got all these other dimensions because it's the only way that we can reconcile the data. And if there's all these other dimensions, then it means that the dimensions that we see as like separation, like, for example, I'm standing in this place that is, in the coordinates of X, Y, Z. It's the same space I was standing in a second ago, but the dimension of time has changed. Well, there's still an overlap in physical space, so there's still an overlap in the other three dimensions. Well, imagine if there's 10 dimensions, and you think that you've separated things by one or two dimensions, you've still got a lot of other dimensions by which they could be overlapping and really not separate at all. And so they're still in total coordination with one another. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's a very exciting field. This is such an exciting field. I've been long interested in this my whole life. You say that learning has become overly dominated by the left brain, and that the big price about this is this loss of creativity or this diminished creativity. Talk about that. That's very important.
Oh, I had an interesting conversation with one of my patients today, actually, about this very subject, because she's very right-brained. And in talking with her, it just was confirmed all the more, because the right brain tends to, and this is, you have to realize that, if you're left-handed, or if you're a musician, or if you're gay, or, male or female, all those variables play a role in the degree to which things are delegated predominantly to the left brain or the right brain. But
fascinating.
So let's assume we're talking about a right-handed heterosexual male. In those people, the left hemisphere, for the most part, has been overly reinforced as the major way of processing information in the Western world. And so it thinks linearly, it thinks logically, and it only can process information one data point at a time. It's very detail-oriented. But the right brain is much more creative. It's much more big picture, less focus on details. It's much more the way, it was much more the dominant brain of mankind before we invented writing and language, particularly Western language, which uses letters and creates words rather than using
pictures,
pictures or pictographs, ideograms for symbols. So we've become a culture that uses predominantly our left brain. Well, what happens in using predominantly our left brain is that we filter out a lot of information that people who are more right brain process. The right brain can process manyfold, I don't know, 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold the amount of information